Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Leadville, Colorado, where we're here for a distance training camp with the ski team. We've done a couple of really awesome workouts. One of them yesterday, pretty harrowing. We got caught in a lightning storm up near the top of a peak, and it was pretty crazy. So I want to invite you here for just a moment as we discuss what's up and coming this week in the micro labs. So I thought before I jump into that, I thought I'd give you a little bit of heads up on some current events that I found pretty interesting. With the increasing rise in global CO2 levels, one of the things that causes is acidification of the oceans. And what that seems to affect is the shrimp population in benthic regions in the ocean, meaning bottom-dwelling regions. And that correspondingly seems to affect those microorganisms involved in nitrogen cycling. So a great example of how changes in CO2 concentrations can have a large impact also on other nutrient cycles that may involve ocean-dwelling microorganisms. That being said, I'm going to draw your attention first to the upcoming schedule for the week. Remember that this week we are going to jump into labs 1 and 2. So on Tuesday we'll be doing lab 1. Most of that day will be handled by me, but you're going to want to start to get familiar with microscopy and how to teach that. And then on lab 2 you're going to take over a little more responsibility, particularly with regards to demos. This Friday, responsibility for open lab falls to Callie, Sydney, and Jesse. So remember again to get someone to cover you if you're not going to be able to be there for open lab this week. Also, Thursday is the last day to drop, so we may want to notify our students that that would be the last day that they could go about doing that. So let's go ahead and take a look just quickly onto Canvas and the action going on right there. In Canvas, I'm going to have to ask for your assistance because we found a roundabout way to keep students from having access to all of the pre-labs and just to limit them to accessing their pre-lab. So I'm just going to go into quizzes for a moment and show you what we've done with that. So on the ones that have already been published, what we did is we set the everyone else date for a date that that they could not actually access. So let me just try to explain that. Notice that before, when we had done this, we had set the dates for just say section 10. So this is Josh and John and Andy, your section. Remember, we would have set the dates for the 8 a.m. due dates and opening on the lab prior to that. And so now what we need to do on all of our pre-labs is to set the date for everyone else. You know how it pops up and it says, what about everyone else? And before we were just saying no due dates. Well, it turns out if we do that, they can actually, all the other sections can actually see the pre-labs. So what we need to do instead is to set this to a time that has already passed. So if you just want to use August 1st as the sort of default value there, that means that none of the other sections should be able to access that pre-lab. So I'm asking you the favor, I guess everyone, to go back to your due dates and make sure to set the everyone else due date for that August 1. Please let me know if this is confusing to you and I'll help you out, but I'm otherwise going to assume that you'll take care of your individual lab sections in setting those pre-lab dates for that time that's already expired so that no one else can see those pre-labs. That being said, let's talk a little bit about the TA guidelines for both labs 1 and 2. Beginning with lab 1, which I'll primarily handle the responsibility for lab 1 lecture delivery, except for I think that Slobodan says that he wants to cover it, and if Aaron, if that is the case, let me know and you can go ahead and cover the lecture. But this is a pretty big lecture, a lot of introduction of microscopy, and I want you guys to feel as though you can go ahead and teach the students microscopes. But one of the things that is hard with that is actually the fact that students are really just learning, and a lot of them have had no contact with the microscope before. So down here, highlighted in gray, are some suggestions for how to work with students when they're frustrated or when they're having trouble seeing in the scope. These are common issues that we deal with. For example, sometimes a student will complain that they can focus on the slide at 10x but not at 40x or 100x, and usually this means they have the slide upside down. So these are just tidbits that we're going to talk about here. Now on lab 1, we're asking them only to use the 10x lens and the 40x lens and not the high power oil immersion lens. We're going to save that for lab 2. So that's a nice segue into the lab 2 TA guidelines, where your responsibility will be a little bit greater. In lab 2, I'm going to ask you to be ready to demonstrate the negative stain, and we want to kick students off with that negative stain at the beginning of the hour. So if you could be ready to demo how to do the 2 drops of Congo Red, better with loopfuls of Congo Red rather than actual drops because they'll take forever to dry. So show them how to do the loopfuls of Congo Red, then show them how to take a little bit of bacteria, probably using the needle to take a single isolated colony, mix in the Bacillus subtilis into the left-hand circle of a Congo Red, and then a tooth scraping with a toothpick to mix into the right circle. And then that way, when we're doing the lecture, their Congo Red stains can dry. We will then want to show them how to go to oil immersion. And so I've highlighted all of these things in the TA guidelines that you will need to be ready to do for lab on Thursday. So recognize this as being your particular responsibilities on come Thursday. And also take time again to think about how to teach microscopes, because this is going to be a reoccurring theme in teaching, and that is to say that knowledge doesn't equal teaching ability. So I don't care if you're the biggest BA ever in doing something in the lab. It doesn't make you automatically really, really awesome with teaching it. So I want you to think not only about, hey, do I know how to do this? Great, I'm glad you do. But then think about, how do you teach it? So this is a really, really important part of what we do in the lab, is not just thinking about how to do it, but how to teach it. So that being said, I think this wraps up pretty nicely a down and dirty version of what's going to happen this week. Maybe I hope that this will stimulate you to go back in and take a little more time investigating the week to come, and I can't wait to see all of you on Tuesday.